Good evening, I'm Romain Blois, and today I will talk to you about the Japanese education system, which is based on elitism, discipline, and collective spirits. So I don't have any notes with me because I want to do a natural oral presentation, like if I was in presence of the professor. I think it's better like that, and I'm more used to that. I'm not quite used to record myself. It's not natural, and I don't like that. So I prefer to make it like this. And if I have moments where I am choosing my words, where I'm like this, for example, I will keep this moment of silence because I think it's more natural like that, and I prefer this. So to begin with the PowerPoint, I made this subtitle Elitism, Discipline and Collective Spirit because I think these are the three more important points to begin with. And so I choose to study the Japanese education system because I believe it is the most well-known system in Asia because in Japan we have a strong soft power that irradiates the world, which shines in in the world. For example, in France we have a big influence in the soft power, in the Japanese soft power, and in these video games, a series, or even manga, there is a presentation of this Japanese education system, and it's a very bit cliche, but because of this culture which shows this system, we are well known of their culture, of their habits. For example, wearing the uniform, for example, or the idea that the Japanese are very silent and respectful towards the professor. So I thought it was a very interesting point. And also the second point is that Japan is one of the most it was the best ranked education system in the world based on the program for international students assessments. We can see in the PowerPoint, so I've put it the 2022 ranking, and for mathematics, science, and reading, so for these three disciplines, we can see that Japan is always in the top 5. So it's a very strong education system, and also it shines with this soft power. So I wanted to see if it's really like that in reality, and also to show maybe why Japan is that brilliant with this system, and if there is also some flaws, some problems with this system. The first point, so the first part, I wanted to show that the Japanese structure is inspired by the European system, but it's quite unique because their rhythm is different. And so it's to show that Japan is different from the other Asian educative system. It's a very unique system, and so I wanted to start the PowerPoint by that. So yes, the Japanese education system is inspired by the European one because it's at the end of the Edo era and the beginning of the Meiji era that Japan rebuilt his educative system. It was a private system before, which was designed, which was created for a military purpose. And after the Meiji era, it was inspired by the German system. So we have an elementary school, a junior high school, and a high school like Europe, with a primary education and a secondary education. So the elementary school is named Shagako. It's between 6 years old and 13 years old. So basically it's like France, but with 2 years 2 more years in elementary school. Then we have Chugako, so junior high school, so college in France, until 16 years old. And to conclude, we have high school, so like the lycée, Kuko in Japanese, until 18 years old. So we can see that this is a European system. It's really similar to what we have in France. And even in the disciplines, it's basically the same that we can see in Europe, with the main language, so Japanese, mathematics, English, science, and also all the human science, like social science, like history, economy, or geography. The main difference is that sport and art have a very special place in Japan, and art, there is art also in high school. It's a discipline as important in Japan than history or mathematics. Sorry for the cut, I had a little blackout in my ideas, so I continue. I just said that they had the same discipline as in Europe, but they also have similar schedules, because they have 6 hours of school per day, from Monday to Friday, and they also have 2 Saturdays per month where they work the morning. They also have meals in school, from elementary school to junior high school, and then in high school they have to prepare their own meals. In Japan we call that they called this bento, so they prepare themselves, and they eat this bento in classes. They don't eat in rooftops like we can see in fiction, because there are obvious security problems with that. And so we just saw that they have a similar discipline and schedules as Europe, but the difference is made with the rhythm, because they have 3 semesters, and they start in April and it ends in March. Their big vacation, it's 1 month, and it's in I think it's August. So they have a break in August. It's not very far from April. So the summer break is not here to put an end to the year. It's in between the year. So it's the main difference, and it's very unique in the world to start school at April and to end in March. And for this reason, this unique schedule is not very suitable for French students. So these Japanese schools regularly accept registration in September. So this is the main difference. And because of this inspiration of the European system and this schedule, we have a very particular system. But the main characteristic of the Japanese education system is that the traditions and discipline are the core of the Japanese of the system. Like I said before, the Japanese education system was made for a military purpose before the Meiji era. So they have kept this tradition and discipline in order not to make good soldiers, but to make good citizens. And it's very important in Japan not only to provide a good education, but also a good discipline. And this discipline is transmitted from primary school, so Shagako, and they have 1 hour out of 6 per day in order to have a disciplinary activity. For example, it will be moral education class or activities in class and outside of class. For example, cleaning a park, for example. So these are the basic discipline activities, but there is also a constant traditional and discipline acts with responsibilization and standardization. Like I said, in fiction, which is very important, it's the uniform, for example. As we can see in the PowerPoint, there are two uniforms, the Gakuran for males and the Sailor Q for females. And these same uniforms are separated in two versions, the summer and the winter one. And these uniforms are the very cultural symbol of this discipline. But this is not the only form of discipline, of tradition. For example, when they enter in school, they have to remove their shoes to take the school ones. And there is also the tradition to bow down to the principal or even the teachers when they see them. And there is this form of responsibilization when students are in charge of their clubs and also in charge of cleaning. There is no adult in charge of cleaning in Japanese schools. The students are in charge of it. So we have this tradition, this military tradition that has been transformed into a civilized tradition, a citizenship tradition. If we compare with France, we can see that their disciplinary tradition are very strict, but it not only affects their appearances and their attitude, but it also affects the classes, because in Japan, when the teacher is making his lessons, very little few interaction with the students, and if the teacher don't ask questions, the Japanese students will not participate in class. They will simply take notes, and there is no interaction between the students and the teachers like we can see in France. This is in fact a form of an opposition between uniformization and individuality. In Japan, they teach you what you need to learn in order to be a good citizen. But in France, we love to debate, we love to express ourselves. As in Japan, they don't want you to like to debate, but they want you to like to work. And for example, in primary school, the students are not evaluated on their results, but they are evaluated on their commitments or their engagement in class. And so this is a form of a way of life, which is consensual in Japan because the society is made for work, but there is also a form of it can create some frustration because the students can't express themselves, and to create a sort of unwell-being. And for example, in Japan, this frustration exploded in the 70s and in the 90s with the creation of gangs in classes. It was the banchos for male gangs and the sukeban for female gangs, and they were a form of opposition directly to the teachers, to the norms. It was a sort of a freedom request linked to the explosion of cinema, of Hollywood, and the American values of freedom. So it was an explosion of frustration, but this way of life, the sukeban and the banchos, became parts of the Japanese culture, and now these are like the cowboys in America. These are forms of freedom, but they are these gangs in fiction have a lot of values, of friendship values. So the culture appropriates these gangs, and now they are not forces of opposition to the norm, but they are a way for students to express themselves. But this is not an attack to the Japanese education system. Sadly, this form of romanticization of gangs could hide the fact that when there is frustration in Japan, there is also a lot of violence in the educative system. And if now there is no more gangs in classes, there is always a lot of acts of violence in these classes, and the most common one is harassment, school harassment. But we will see in other parts, because it is linked with the idea that in Japan there is also a very competitive system. To summarize, the Japanese educative system could be compared to the European one because it was inspired to it, but in fact with the discipline aspects, this is very different, very unique, and much more inspired by the Asian systems like China, for example, or South Korea. But the other parts of this Asian heritage is also the fact that the Japanese education system is a very elitist one, embodied by the competition between students and also the will to work more. I did not talk about it in the first part, but one of the main differences between the European system and the Japanese one is that at each end of trimester in Japan they have an exam in high school, so it's a very hard schedule. They have to work hard to have the highest ranks at each exam at the end of the trimester, because in Japan there is a very selective, the universities are very selective, and there are three forms of universities. There are the national universities, the public universities, and the private universities, and each university has his level of glory. And in Japan, the university in which you will obtain a place is very important for your career. So there is a lot of elitism in Japan. They want to have the highest grades in order to get the best universities for their career. And all the ranking system has been made in order to put the students in competition. For example, at each end of this exam at the end of the trimester, the grades are in the, how can I say it? They are displaced in the corridors of the classes, and there is a rank of the better grades. So all the students are fighting to be the best students in the rank, to be the first one or in the top 10, in order to be congratulated by the teachers, and to gain a letter of recommendation by them in order to get to the best universities. Even more than the three exams at each end of the trimester, the students in the last year of high school also have an exam which is the equivalent of the baccalaureate in France. And I have to take my phone in order to spell it right. I'm sorry. Which is Daigaken Yugake Higun, which is the diploma in order to enter in a university. And in Japan, this diploma is the most important one. It can define your career, your life, and so there is a phenomenon in Japan that we call the Gakure Kibyo, the diploma disease. In fact, the Japanese students are so this exam is so important to them that they only work in order to have it. They don't. The knowledge in class isn't important. They just want to have this diploma. And so in Japan they have an expression. It's that it's more difficult to enter in the university than to get a diploma in university after that, because the classes in universities are more softer than the high school. And so there is a lot of pressure from the teachers, from the parents, in order to get this diploma. And so we have this Gakure Kibyo disease, but we also have the well-known phenomenon of the ikikomori, which are students too scared of this exam that they don't want to go to class anymore, and so they cut themselves from society. They live in their rooms and they don't want to leave it. So it's a big social problem. This exam is so important that they just think about it, and they can really go heal because of this exam. It's much more important than the baccalaureate in France. And this exam takes the form of a multiple choice tests. So like I said before, in Japan we don't have this spirit of debate, of composition, of document commentary. This is knowledge, what we need to learn in order to be a good citizen, and this is a form of standardization. And so another phenomenon of this elitist schedule is that even if they have 6 hours of school per day, a lot of students in Japan are working a lot more than that. They have specialized schools, private schools that are named Juku, where they have additional courses for them in order to have additional courses to obtain their diploma, and to be sure to get the best grades in order to get to the college they want. I'm sorry to cut another time our representation, but I wanted to talk again about the school harassment and all the other problems we can encounter in a system like the Japanese one. In fact, with an elitist and disciplinary system, the students are in a lot of pressure, and I think it's kind of a nocive environment for them to grow. And so even if there is not violence like rebellion against teachers or act of vandalism, etc., the violence is more intimate, is more vicious, because it's again individuals in and out of classes. For example, school harassment in phones, etc. And because they are always in competition, there is this idea of pressure, of jealousy also. And with this elitist system, there is also the scare of failure, the fear of failure, which cause in Japan a dramatic situation with a lot of suicides at near the exams. For example, in 2024, we had 500 Japanese students who killed themselves just before the diploma exam for the university. So I think it's one of the main problems in this system. Yes, it's one of the most efficient, and the students are formed to be great citizens, like the government wants them to be. But it really can destroy the students who are not fitted in this system. And so I think that it's not only a matter of Japanese situation, because it's also the case, for example, in South Korea or in China. It's really an Asian problem in general, that the students have so much pressure from society, from parents, that they can really just go ill or make awful decisions. We just saw that the Japanese education system is based on two pillars, which are the discipline in order to make good citizens and elitism in order to make a society based on meritocracy. There is, in fact, a third pillar, which is as important as the others, which is the creation of a community spirit. In fact, in Japan, there is a lot of community aspects in classes. The schools are very active in order to create a lot of festivals, a lot of activities for students in order to create communities. The development of a collective spirit is probably one of the most well-known aspects of Japanese life in school, because in fiction it's this collective aspect that shines the most in fiction of sport, in fictions centered on art, for example, in movies or even manga. And so there is different form of engagement into these collectivities. And for example, we have the three main aspects, which are the clubs, the cultural festival, which is named in Japanese the Bunkasai, and the sport festival, which is named the Undokai. I think it's interesting to see this collective spirit, this collective form, as a sort of countermeasure, as a sort of counterpart of the competitive, the elitist aspects of Japanese life, because the fact that they create groups, that they help each other, it helps to reduce the stress that they gain in this quest to get the diploma at the end of the university. It's like two pillars that help each other and are very opposed in their philosophy. So this is why Japan is very, very unique, because there is this elitist aspect and this collective aspect too. So which are not in competition. The fact that they are in groups help them to be better in class. So it's very interesting. And this collective spirit is also linked with this discipline aspect, because they have to be in charge of their clubs, but also of the festival. For example, the cultural festival, each classes have to make their own festival, to their own activities for the other students. So it's like they push themselves to work together and also to be better together in grades. So it's like three pillars that help each other in order to make good citizens, to make a meritocratic aspect, but also to train, to form them to live in society, to create bonds that they will keep after school. And with this aspect, I also have to talk about the relationship between the senpai and the kohai. The senpai is the older student and the kohai is the younger one. And the senpai have to help the younger one, for example, with his homeworks. But there is also this idea of respect from the kohai to the senpai. And the kohai have to be a senpai later and to recreate what he was helped before by his senpai. So it's like a succession. And in the clubs, for example, the last grades have to form the youngers in order to prepare the younger that will come later. So it's really three pillars that help themselves. Sorry, but I think there is also some limits in this system, because with all these collective aspects, the individual doesn't exist in the Japan system. And so if students are harassed, if they are ill or just depressed, they can't say it loud to their comrades, because this is seen as selfish, because there is a collective spirit and the individual is not important. And I think even if it's a good idea in theory, there is some limits to the system. In order to conclude, we can say that the Japanese educative system is based on 3 pillars, which are discipline, elitism, and collective spirits. These 3 pillars are based on different inspiration in the world, a European inspiration and an Asian heritage. And this combination of influences creates a system that is very efficient in the world. We saw that in the rankings that Japan is very well ranked in the top 5 each year, but there is also some flaws in this system, and I wanted, in the conclusion, to show 3 examples in my PowerPoint, 3 examples of fiction works at each decade to show different phases of cultural opposition of the system. The first one is a manga which is named Sukeban Arashi by Masami Kurumada, who was written in the 70s at the end of the 70s, during the years of the gangs of the Banchos and the Sukeban, and the protagonist of the manga is a Sukeban, and it shows the pressure that the students are put into with their exams. It also shows parts of feminism, because the students, the female students, have different uniforms than males, and there is also a society in Japan that emphasizes sex, and males have better jobs than females, even if they don't have the best grades. So this is something we didn't talk in the PowerPoint earlier, but the sexism is always important in Japan still today. There is also a part of sexism, and already in the 70s there were a criticism for this. So this is why the Sukeban are a form of feminism in Japan, but it's very controversial. The second one is a movie named Battle Royale, who was released in 2001, if I remember, by Takeshi Kitano, which shows the fear that the students can express towards the system, but also the relationship between the students and the teachers, because this is also something we didn't talk about, but with all this idea of respect towards the teachers, bowing down to them, etc., there is a kind of I don't know, we say soumission, some kind of submissive attitude to these teachers, and there is a lot of cases of bad teachers with bad attitudes, and with this status of submission, the students don't talk about some abuse that the teacher can do. And so in Battle Royale, we can see what this submissive attitude can lead to, where a teacher asks the student to kill their friends, for example. And the last one is a video game. I wanted to show different media. The last one is a video game which is named Persona 5, which is about a group of students, and we see a group of students during their 1 year of high school, and we saw all the pressure they have to endure, and also how the harassment in class can be without any consequences because of this collective spirit. They don't want to talk about it, and so the depressed and harassed person always are alone, and teachers can also be abusive to this. So I wanted to show three, yes, because Persona Royale has been released in 2020. So I wanted to show three different forms of culture that opposed to this system. One from the 70s, one from the beginning of the century, and one that was very recent. So I hope my presentation wasn't too long. I think I have yes, I don't think it's 10 minutes. I think it's a lot more. So I'm sorry for that, and thank you for listening to me.